Yes or no? Are you people getting my screen? Guys, I need acknowledgement.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes.
fine. So again, I'm informing you that I'm connected with only one device. So if it will be great help and support if you are speaking in between whenever I'm asking, because I could not see the screen of chat while sharing my screen of the PPT. Fine. So today we are going to start about unit number 5. As in morning first two session we have revised and solved the quiz taken for unit 1, 2 and 3, and then we have discussed about immutable classes and object, and we talk about these reference. Okay, so that was a part of your unit number 4. And today we are going to start here with the new discussion, which is object oriented thinking. Now, first question which should come in your mind is like why we are using the object oriented thinking. Fine. So, if you talk about object oriented programming, right? What is object oriented programming? Do you know that object orientation is a way of developing the product? Fine. So we call it as an object orientation. Okay. So whenever you have any software product, fine, we call it as a product because it's a final stuff which is going to be used by the consumer and they are going to make some benefit out of it. Maybe non-commercial, just for the ease of the people who are using that software, but somehow we are going to develop a product and we are going to have certain outcomes by using that product. So, whenever you design any software, you have to think about real world entity. And these real world entities could be either trivial or non trivial, living or non living, right? And these real world entity are mapped as an objects, are mapped as an objects in object oriented paradigm or object oriented methodology. When I say paradigm, it means it's a methodology. So now these methodology can be applied to entire software development life cycle. How we develop a software? How we develop a software? Suppose somebody is asking you to develop a software. What they will do is they will give you certain problem statement. Once you are achieving a problem statement, let us say somebody is having some factory and doing some production and they don't have software and they are asking you to develop a website or a desktop application which will maintain the details regarding employees or worker working in the factory and products being produced from that product from that factory. So you need to do the first thing of this problem statement is the detailing, or we call it as an analysis. So analysis is always the first part which comes with the software development. We do analysis by studying the system in the detail. To do so, we go to the place, we observe there, we take interviews, we see the documents which are being maintained as a manual process by some mustard or register or a notebook. They're writing the entries of employees in and out time. So we are going to check out all these things. This is called analysis. At times you talk to the people who are there in the system and you just talk how the system is working manually. And to make it more efficient, after doing the analysis, you will do design. You will design the system. Now, over here, design does not mean the coding. Design is just a blueprint or thinking how your actual system will look like. How your actual system will look like, right? So once you're clear with that design, so now what if we are doing this before writing the program or before developing the software, we are doing analysis and we are doing the designing. It could be on paper, it could be certain diagrams, it could be anything, right? And we know that picture is more worthy than the word. A single picture worth 1,000 words, right? If you're looking at the picture, it will be more clear than understanding from the paragraphs, right? And by keeping that thing in mind, there is an approach which is known as object oriented design and analysis. Object oriented design and analysis. Fine. And to do this design and analysis, we are preparing certain diagrams. What these diagrams will do? These diagrams will analyze the software requirement by keeping the objects in the center, and that's why we call it's an object oriented paradigm. It is going to find out what is the relation between two objects. For example, if you are making a factory software, you have to know one employee is making how many products. If one employee is making 100 products in a day, in a 7 days, how many products will be made? You will maintain the track. And what if that employee is getting absent? If we are calculating the salary based on the days worked in the factory, if it is like we have to calculate from it, somebody, Rishabh Gohil. Who is Rishabh Gohil? Is he from your class? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Kindly message him, Devarsh, that only Marwadi ID is allowed. He's using the other email address, so I am denying his entry.
Okay, ma'am.
Message him. Say him that use Marwadi email to join the system. I mean, to join the discussion. So, I was talking about object-oriented analysis and design. So these are the two phases. If we talk about the basic software development life cycle, there are so many process models. But if we talk about the software development life cycle, which is a very simple one, this you will learn in your 7th or 6th semester. Software engineering is the subject. Software development life cycle, also known as process model, and the one which we are talking about, the simplest one, is the waterfall model. Like the way waterfalls, step by step, will go in a such way for developing our software. So analysis and design are the way, or are the phases where you need to think before writing the code. So analysis is phase 1, design is phase 2, and the third phase is coding, or you can say implementation. Implementation means writing the code, right? We'll try to get new words, technical words, and this is how you can be a very good engineer. When you're having good vocab, people will get impressed. Okay, so we will have analysis, design, and implementation. Once your code is implemented, you need to do testing, whether the project is working properly or not, and we'll fix the bugs, whatever are being exposed in the testing phase. So there are basic 4 models: analysis and design, which is before code. Then implementation means doing the coding, and once the coding is done, we are going to do testing of this software. So if you talk about first 2 phases, when you are going to implement the third phase in object oriented programming, obviously you need to go with the object oriented approach in the thinking also, or in the analyzing your system, or designing the blueprints or diagrams for your system. So right now we are talking about unit number 5, which is focusing on object oriented thinking. All the real world entities, now you have to think in the terms of objects, and that's why before developing any software, you are going to find out what is the relation between these 2 objects, how these objects are related to each other. Is there any close relationship? If it is there, then how can I connect code of that one class with the another class? What are the dependencies? Is there any hierarchy, like one class is being derived from the another class, right? So all these things are known as object oriented thinking, which is our unit number 5. Are you clear with what we are going to do in the unit number 5? Right? Unit number 5 is thinking about your software analysis and designing before the code in the terms of thinking or doing the diagrams preparation in the way we do in normal programming. Instead of that, we will keep object in. Give me a second, guys. Okay, so we were talking about that object-oriented way of thinking about your software before writing the code. Fine. So the object-oriented thing comes like in a black box to your client, because your client don't know what is class. Your client is not aware about what is method. Your client do not know what is variable. What they will tell you is, because they are not technically literate people, and that's why they are not aware what is data table, what is data type, what is variable, right? So from the client perspective, you are having a system and they're giving you certain sentences. What you have to do is, you have to find out the entities, and you need to find out what are the classes which is possible from the given statement. Fine. So to do so, we are going to go with the class abstraction and encapsulation. So these are the two major characteristics of object-oriented programming. We discussed that there are four categories, right? There are four categories. That is abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. So from that, right now we are talking about class abstraction and encapsulation, right? So when I say class abstraction, actually, class abstraction is separation of class implementation from the use of class. From the use of class. What does it mean? It means that if you are having a class, let us say you are designing a software, and that software is having certain objects. If we talk about the factory management system, right? What you will have is you will have managers, you will have workers, you will have products, right? And maybe managers are your admin, or maybe factory owner is the admin, because managers will also get the leave. So if admin is the one who is going to operate the software, he is the client. We are just assuming a scenario. He is the client, right? So your client don't know that your code is going to have all this as a classes. So for your client, your class implementation is like a black box. It is hidden from the client, right? It is hidden from the client. What client uses is, client uses the class through the contract of the class. So the client is going to make use of certain commands, or maybe a client is going to use a class having the main method, right? And from that main method, we would have been created objects of all these class, and we are going to use it. But for client, these objects are just black box. They don't know what is it. Fine. So you can say the class implementation or how the coding has been done is hidden from the client, because client is not a technically literate person. Fine. So your class contract is basically signature of the methods and the public constants, because in order to use any class you need to have some public methods, and with the help of those public methods any user can use your class property. Fine. So if I talk about class abstraction, basically abstraction means hiding the background details, right? As I given you the example, your admin may use main method, which would have been given as an a window where we have a username and password and a button to log in, and your admin will log into that and he will just click on see workers, so he is not aware that he is accessing the class worker. So for your admin, all this is a black box. He don't know the background details, the implementation details or class code, which is class implementation, is hidden from the client. So this is called abstraction. This is called abstraction. The word abstraction means hiding the details from the client or hiding the background details. Is it clear? Is it clear? Am I audible, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, again, I'm reading the first line. The class abstraction is a separation of class implementation from the use of the class. Fine. So, use of the class, we know that we can use a class with the help of object. So, there may be some other contracts or method through which we will use that class. So, the details of the implementation are encapsulated, and we have learned already encapsulation word. Encapsulation means abstraction means hiding the implementation detail. And when I say encapsulation, then it is wrapping of data field and methods, right, together, right? So it means creating the class, because your class will have all these things. Yes or no? Your class will have a data field, suppose class product, right? Suppose class product. If we have class product, then we will have, we'll make a public class product, right? And we will just use certain properties. Integer product ID, we'll say string product name, and we may have double product price, right? And if this is for factory management, we have to take details like we'll say java.util.date, and we will say manufacturing date, mf date, right? As well, we have to also give the expiry date. Yes or no? Because each and every product gets expired, right? So all these are the methods. And if you want to suppose in a company product gets manufactured, so we know that day by day it will get manufactured. So for a particular product, let us say 100 products are being developed or produced, then 1 to 100 may have developed or produced today, and 100 to 200 may get manufactured on the second day. Fine. So we can create this kind of setup, or we can create the methods which is setting all these variables. So now if you look at any system in the world, basically all the systems are any real world entity which is having certain features, and we are just reading and writing those values. That's it. We are reading and writing those values. That is the ultimate object orientation, or that's ultimate a software means. Fine. So when I say encapsulation, basically we are wrapping up the data field and methods together in a single entity, and we call it as a class. So classes will have certain methods also. And these variables will always be private and will have public methods to access these data fields. Fine. So that is what encapsulation means. The details of information are encapsulated and hidden from the user. This is known as class encapsulation. For example, you can create a circle object and find area of a circle without knowing how area is computed, right? So that's the example of abstraction, because we are not giving the calculation equation to the end user. We are just asking user enter radius, and when user is entering the radius, we are just calculating and giving back. So computation method is not given to the client. Right? So for this reason, a class is also known as abstract data type. We call class as an abstract data type because class is hiding the implementation detail. Fine. So this is about your abstraction and encapsulation. Now we are going to talk about thinking in the terms of objects, right? If I talk about procedure-oriented programming, then in procedure-oriented programming, we mostly focus on designing the methods. And that's what your C was doing. Yes or no? If you recall your C program, all these things are possible in the C also. We are doing this, right? C programs also allows us to calculate area of circle. C program also allows us to create a structure for a product. We can create this. Yes or no? We can create a structure product. If you have learned the chapter which is about the structures, you can create various structure variables, and then you can just use that for the computation. Fine. So structure variables were also possible, but the major difference is C is procedure oriented programming. It falls into the category of procedure oriented programming, and that's why we are not much focusing on that we have to manage product and employees, but we are just thinking how to manage. We are more focused on the procedures, or we are more focused on the methods. Fine. That's the difference. That's the difference. Okay. Fine. So, as I said you that procedure-oriented paradigm or methodology to develop a software is more focused on the methods or functions, how to develop the functions. Whereas when I say object-oriented methodology or paradigm, it combines or it couples the data and methods together into objects, right? All the data and methods. So now what we are doing is, it is, you see, it is more managed way. It's more managed way. If we are going to talk about developing this thing, this software factory management using C, we would have taken all the variables together, all related to product, manager, employees, all we would have taken together, and then we would have kept it inside a single method, public static void main. Fine. So in that case, there is no separation. There is no separation in the real world entities which are carrying the properties. We're not classifying the entities having the similar features to put into a single group. Fine. So this is the advantage of object-oriented programming, because we are designing the software by keeping the similar objects or the focused object and operations on the objects in a same group. Fine. So you can see here we have an example. We say we are having let us say we have class BMI. If I have a class BMI, here you can see what I have over there is, what is BMI? What is BMI? We have already calculated BMI. Yes or no? What is BMI?
Body mass index.
Exactly, body mass index, which is a kind of a measure to check how much fit you are. Your physical fitness can be measured with the help of the BMI index, which is a number, a double type of number. Fine. So see here, what I have is, I have a class, public class BMI. I'm saying string name and age because we want to check whether the person is having the proper BMI or not. So what we will do is we will ask person's number, age, and we'll ask height and weight. We are asking the height and weight. Okay. So this is the input. Fine. And along with that, we are taking the values, which is kilograms per pound and meters per inches, which is the standard value to calculate the BMI. Now, what we are doing over here is we have a constructor. You can see the first line. Are you focused? Are you focusing here? I'm talking here. Public BMI, and we said we have string name, integer age, weight, and height. These are the 4 parameters which we are giving. Most of the website does this. Have you seen this? I guess I have shown you this in your lab session also. So I have online BMI calculator, and you can see here. Usually it takes height and weight. We are taking age and yeah. Can you see this? This is online BMI calculator. This is standard feet and inches. This is metric, which is taking kilograms and centimeters, right? And these are the values. If BMI is less than 18.5, then it is underweight. And if it is 18.5 minus to 24.9, then it is normal weight. And if it is like 25 to 29.9, then it is overweight. And if BMI is greater than 30, greater than or equal 30, then it is obesity, which is very dangerous. You should reduce your weight quickly. Fine. So this is the BMI categories which is there. And now we are talking about same system. What I'm saying is, if I want to calculate, suppose I am having a fitness center and I am measuring the health of my clients, what I need to do is I need to take their name and age both in order to remember whose weight or whose BMI was what, right? So for that purpose, we have, while creating the object, we are taking BMI constructor. We have taken parameterized constructor and taking name, age, weight, and height in the argument. We are now aware about this. This will assign the values, right? So if you look at here, this is my main method. I have first user Kim Yang, 18 age, 145 height, and 70 weight, right? So if I'm creating BMI1 object, these 4 values will be given. So this reference is assigning the current value to the instance variable, right? So it is doing the same when I'm creating object for the first time. These argument is Kim Yang, which is copied to this dot name. It means here in a BMI class variable, I'm copying that value. Age 18 is going to be copied here, and so on the other variables. Fine. Now I have another variation of BMI constructor. You can see here. What I have is string name. I have double weight and double height. I've given name, comma, 20 weight and height. So over here 20 is the default value, right? So if somebody is assigning a name, weight, and height, by default the age will be taken 20. And what we are doing is we are using this. Are you recalling the last session? What we are doing is, what is the use of this reference? What is this? What it will do? Can you tell me? These and 4 parameters I have written in the second constructor. So this is constructor overloading. I have one constructor BMI with 4 arguments, and I have another constructor BMI with 3 arguments. But with the 3 arguments constructor, I have written this and given 4 arguments. What does it mean? Am I audible, guys? Am I connected? Hello? Okay. Yeah, I was like,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. So what this keyword does last session? It calls the constructor of the same class. So what it will do? It will look for the other constructor in the same class. And here is the other constructor. So this and this 4 parameter, these 4 parameter with the help of these keyword is going to call this one. So it will assign now age as a 20, right? So if you look at, if I'm creating the second object, BMI, this is my main method. BMI2 class name object name equal to new class name. So this is constructor which is having the 3 parameters, Sushan King and 215 and 70. In that case, age parameter is not given. So this will go to the second constructor, but there we have used this, and that's why it will go to this constructor. Fine. Now we have get method. So we are saying public double get BMI. In get BMI, we are calculating the body mass index of a person. So this thing we are creating, calculating with the help of the variables available, right? So double BMI, that is the calculation or the output which we have to give to the user, right? We are just calculating the value, and based on that we'll give status. We'll give the status. Okay. So what we are doing is we are calculating the BMI. So we have stored the variable, we have declared a variable double BMI is equal to weight into kilograms per pound divided by height into meters per inches into height into meter per inches. So the standard equation is m divided by h square, where m is the mass or weight of a person in the kilogram, right? And height is height into m divided by h square. So m divided by h into h. So this is the equation, right? And finally, we are rounding off. So we have written the value math dot round BMI multiply by 100 divided by 100.0. So it will give us a standard value by rounding off the calculation, right? So this is get BMI method. So right now we have class BMI, and we discussed that there are 6 data field: name, age, weight, height, kilograms per pound, meters per inches. We have 2 constructors, and we have we have all the getter methods also. So here we have get name, get age, get weight, get height, and we have get status. Getter method is used to return the particular parameter, particular data field. For example, public string get name will give you the name. Public integer get age will return the age. Public double get weight will return you the weight. Mind well, the return type of the getter method will be type of the data field being returned. For example, name is in string, so here we'll have string. Age is in integer, so here we'll have integer. Height and weight are in double, so that's why we have get weight with the return type double and get height with the return type double. Now we are getting the status, and as I said, for getting the status, we have to go with these categories. What we are saying is, we are saying if person is having the body mass index which is less than or equal to 18.5, then he is underweight. If person is having the body mass between 18.5 to 24.9, then the person is having normal weight. And if the body mass is between 25 to 29.9, then the person is overweight. So can you see this? The same thing we have applied here. if BMI is less than 18.5. And how we are getting this BMI? Based on this calculation. So you see here, we have double BMI is equal to get BMI. So get status is a method of class BMI, which is calling a method get BMI of the same class. So here, get status, one method is calling another method get BMI in the same class. Fine. So based on the calculation, it is going to return the status, right? So this is about your class design. This is class BMI, which is dealing with taking the values, how input is being taken at the time of object creation with the help of constructor. And to display the values, we are having get name, get age, get height, and get weight. Okay. So you can see here we are having public use BMI class. We say in the object-oriented programming, class implementation is a black box hidden from the client. So we are not giving class BMI details to end user. Instead, user is just having public class use BMI class. And with the main method, user is just giving the input. User is just giving the input. We are taking the name, age, height, and weight. And we are using with the help of the BMI1 object, we are calling the method. And we are printing system.out.println. The BMI4, we have done concatenation, object name dot method, BMI1 dot get name plus is, again we are concatenating BMI1 dot get BMI plus a space, and we are saying BMI1 dot get status. So the entire message will be displayed like the BMI for Kim Yang is, right, whatever is the calculated BMI, and we'll say overweight or normal or underweight or obsessed based on the value. We'll have the status here. So you can see this is like totally hidden. How this is coming is not given the exposure clearly here, because we use the object, and with the help of those objects we call the methods. So class implementation is like a black box hidden from the client. Client uses the class through the contract of the class, right? So contract means signature, what are the methods and how we can use it with the help of objects. So this is the contract through which user uses the class. Is it clear? Is it clear? Anyone having any doubt, any questions? Anyone?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, why we use constructor overloading there?
Oh, constructor overloading is not always necessary, but if you talk about the real world scenario, sometimes the things comes like a default value. So to demonstrate that, we have shown it here. But in a real life, when certain values are not provided, we have to take the default values, right? So for such settings, we can use this way. To demonstrate that, we have, I use this example. Otherwise, there is no need. If you want to, you don't want to use the second constructor, that's fine. You can use BMI1 object creation and BMI2 object creation using same constructor. That is fine. In that case, while creating the object to Sushan King, you need to provide the age also. Fine. If you are removing the code of BMI2 here, this constructor, if you are removing with the 3 parameter, then you need to compulsorily provide 4 parameters while creating the object. Fine. But in real life, when there is optional value, at that time, if in calculation certain values are compulsory, then we should go with this scenario. Constructor overloading is required at that time. Is it clear?
Okay, ma'am.
Who's asking? I mean, when I'm connected with one device, it's really hard to know who is asking the question. So better you say I am and your name.
Savan.
Savan. Okay, Savan, it's a good question actually. It means you are thinking, so that's good. Okay. So Now we are moving to a new topic in the terms of object oriented thinking, which is about to relate one class with another class. We call it as a class relationship. We call it as a class relationship. Fine. Now, look at the diagram first. Look at the diagram first. Suppose this is about a university where we'll have certain course. Course means a subject. Fine. We have certain course. We know that student will enroll in the course, right? So you can see the label, student take course. Fine. Student take course. Over here, student is a real world entity. It means object. If a student is an object, will have various properties: student ID, student first name, student last name, age, admission, date. Fine. And we are saying this student is taking admission in the course. So course will have course ID, course name, course duration, 1 week, 2 week, 1 year, 5 years, depends, right? Now this course will be taught by a faculty. Faculty teach course. Faculty teach course. So role of the faculty is teacher. Fine. So faculty will also have the data fields because faculty is now an object. And if it is object, object will have characteristics. So if we are converting into class, we'll have public class faculty with the data field, integer faculty ID, string faculty name, java.util.date, joining date, string specialization, which is degree of the faculty, and we would have the experience also. Fine. So if you look at any relationship or any software, there is always need to design the classes and you need to explore what is the connection or the relationship among these classes, right? So the way one class is attached or connected with the other class, we call it as a class relationships. And in object orientation, the classes can be connected with each other, or we can have the class relationship in a more common 4 ways. Method number 1, association. Method number 2, aggregation. Method number 3, composition. And method number 4, inheritance. These are the 4 different relationships which are possible among the different classes. Fine. So if we talk about the first relationship, which is association, we say association is general binary relationship. When I say binary relationship, binary means 2. So association is usually between 2 objects, right? Between 2 classes. For example, student and course, 2 classes. For example, course and faculty, 2 classes. So association is general binary relationship that describes the activity between 2 class. Activity between 2 class. For example, student taking course is an association between student class and course class. So take is an association, student taking course. Fine. Another thing, another example, faculty member teaching a course is an association between faculty class and course class, right? So the generally binary relationship which describes the activity between those 2 classes, we call it as association. We call it as association. So if we talk about our example, factory example, right? If we talk about our example, let us talk about these 3. What is the relationship? How we can give the association? How will have the association between these class? Usually classes will be in plural. We not say products, we'll say product. Fine. So how we can give the association? Product, you can say produced by. right? Or we can reverse it. We can take worker also. Worker produce product. Yes or no? So this is a binary relationship, and it is showing the action. Worker is going to make the product. To making the product, you can use the word make also. Let me make it simple. Worker make product. So make is an action. Making something is an action. Who does it? Worker does it. Right? So it's a class, and this is another class. So this is binary relationship. Yes or no? Right? Another thing, manager manage product. Sorry, manager manage worker. Usually manager task is to manage. Right? Can you see this? So manage is an action, make is an action, right? So this is called association. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you can see there are certain numbers and the asterisk signs given, right? For example, 1, for example, 0, dash, dash, 3, for example, here asterisk, and here 5 to 16. So the number which is mentioned here, we call it as a multiplicity. We call it as a multiplicity. The diagram which we have seen right now is called the UML diagram, which is a part or the standard tool to have object-oriented thinking. UML, Unified Modeling Language. Unified, universal, for everyone it is same. Unified, modeling, to prepare a model language. Though it's not a programming language, it is a language of drawing the diagrams. It's a language for drawing the diagram. And it is unified. All over the world, we are having same notations. For class, we'll do the square. For relationship, we'll draw the line to indicate that how many students are involved in the how the class is participating, number of entities, number of instances of this class participating in this relation is known as multiplicity. For example, for a course there should be minimum 5 students, maximum 60 students. So there could be any number of students that can take part in a course. So we'll have 5 students, 6 students, 7, 55, 56, 60 in any course, right? And star means many. Star means many. We call it as asterisk, right? So I'm reading the first paragraph. It says, UML diagram shows that student may take any number of courses. You can take 1, you can take unlimited, like you can take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, unlimited, fine. But you see faculty member, it is saying that 1, right? So it means that at most 1, at least one faculty has to teach the course. And for the course, it is like 0 dash dash 3, right? 0 dash dash 3. What does it mean? A faculty member may teach at most 3 courses. And a course may have 5 to 60 students. And a course is taught by one and only one faculty. A course is taught by one and only one faculty. Course, only one faculty. Faculty can take at most 1. It means no course also. No 1, 2, 3. Maximum 3, minimum 0. And a student can take any number of courses if they want. But a course must have either any number of students between 5 to 60. So this is called multiplicity. That is called multiplicity. Is it clear? Is it clear, guys? Samjha sir? Any doubt, any questions in the multiplicity and association? Association is a general binary relationship which describes the activity between 2 classes. Right? And multiplicity represents the number of entity taking part in the relationship. Is it clear? Yes or no? Any doubt? Guys, I'm waiting for acknowledgement. Okay, fine. So if we recall today's session, we have learned few things, which is like we learn how software development lifecycle works, what is abstraction and encapsulation, and we learn like what is the relationship between the class, right? And we said there are four types, and from that we have discussed the association, and we say there is number of entity taking part in the relationship, we call it as a multiplicity. So we have seen the symbols, how we can specify the multiplicity in the diagram, right? So this is the design phase. From this design, these designs will be given to developer, and from this design, developer will do the coding. Fine. So that's it for today. Next time we'll discuss further. Today we are keeping up to this. Mostly tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, we'll discuss the further points.